Good morning, friends, and welcome to this session on value based leadership. Uh, Thank you for taking out time and joining us today, this Saturday morning. And I promise you that this investment of 60 minutes will be truly worth your while. We have heard of values, it's not something which is new to us. I got kind of seriously engaged with values in a training program that I had attended from Success Gyan in March 2020, just before COVID lockdown. And in that training program, they asked me to identify my values. And I said it's a really difficult one, and I'm reading out from the list which they shared with us. And maybe you can make a note of it as I am going. And Milind will be doing this, of course, later. But whether I value security more, and uh, and over the years I have seen so many coaching clients come to me where they are struggling because of lack of clarity on the values. Whether you value security, stability, or you value growth, value whether you value family more or career more, whether you value money more or your health more. There are so many different aspects which play out at an individual level and then at the organizational level. My domain is insurance, and this is a very highly regulated sector, and the regulator is doing a very good job. But when the management values profitability, then what happens to customer experience? Do you value customer experience more or profitability more? Will you pass claims and have the customer, genuine claim, of course, and have customer experience be happy, or and sacrifice your profits possibly, or otherwise? So at the root of every decision is something that we value. And if I value something and somebody else values something else, then there is a conflict. And then we get into so many conflict situations. Essentially, I don't want to steal Millen's thunder, but essentially all conflicts, have, or most of the conflicts would have values or difference in values at their root. So understanding values, leading from values is something very important. Do you wonder what are the values Donald Trump leads the world by, or America by? What is his value system? We like to have leaders who, like the Tata Group, is so valued. We all love Tata brand, dealing with Tata brand because they live by certain values. Tanish is a miracle because in a sector, where goldsmiths had a notorious reputation of, not giving you pure gold, Tanish came and people valued that, and so miracles happen, brands happen, personal leadership, so many places it works out because of strong values. But I haven't seen too many people consciously leading with values, even though most of the organizations would have mission, vision, and values, but they are mostly posters. They are not really, living the values. There are so many things which have been going around in my mind over the years, living with this, and going through conflicts in my own life and at workplace. And when I met Milind, I have had the privilege of knowing Milind for last couple of years because both of us are mentors at IIM Nagpur, and that's where I got to meet him for the first time. And hearing him and his views on values, I said, Milind, you need to come and talk to mindful living community about value based leadership. When we talk of mindfulness, people think that it is sitting and meditating, but mindfulness goes much beyond just meditating. It is about being mindful of our values. It's being mindful of our thoughts, emotions, and many other things. So it is in this context that we are having the session today. And Milind is a veteran in HR, over 3 decades experience in the corporate sector, in CXO level roles, leading organizations, as in Acolyte Digital, Cinecron, Cognizant, T Systems, which is a part of Deutsche Telekom, P&O, Nedloyd, and many other leading organizations at CXO roles. And currently he's working as a consultant to DBL Foods, which is Desai Brothers Limited, and the popular brand is Mother's Recipe, and he's on the advisory board of Cummins. He's a mentor to IIM Nagpur. He's a postgraduate from SIBM Pune and a merit holder from XLRI. It's very difficult to do justice to Milind, because his profile and experience is so rich. And I can just go on talking about that for next couple of minutes, but rather I invite him to share his experience and his thoughts on value-based leadership. So Milind, we are very happy to have you here. But before I hand over to you, I'll just take a minute to introduce myself for the benefit of those who are joining our session for the first time. My name is Ashish Kumar, and I am the founder of Mindful Living. I started Mindful Living in 2018. The community we started in April 2020 when the first COVID lockdown took place. A lot of people reached out to me and requested me to conduct sessions on mindfulness to help them deal with the stress and anxiety that the lockdown was causing. And we conducted a session on mindfulness on one of the weekends. One thing led to the other, and now we are a vibrant community of over 1,000 people, and we have continued with the tradition of having sessions every weekend to explore application of mindfulness to daily lives. And by education, I'm an MBA from SIBM, a cost accountant, and mentor to author, mentor. That's been my journey, and I'm happy to have you all with us this morning. And on that note, Milind, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ashish, and thanks to everyone who had joined in. Ashish has set a very, big bar for me to achieve. All right. And, I typically say once you, kind of age beyond 60, okay, people ask you to come and speak, and you're always ready to do that. Because post 60, nobody listens to you in the house. So it's better you have people gathered and, talk to them. So thanks to Ashish and the whole community
Milind,
to
even
be
before
here.
50, nobody listens to us at all.
So I'm sure know Ashish for now few years. We are the mentoring community from Pune. We come together and we were interacting, and I was sharing some of the aspects with him, some of the stories which I've undergone, and he said, "Why don't you put it up together and let's talk to the folks who are interested to know about it." So I think this is the opportunity to share some of my stories and some of the themes which I feel are important. As Ashish rightly said that the values are there on the wall of every organization. I also worked in the corporate, and especially in a knowledge industry for more than 20-22 years. And here, when the organizations are growing multifold, you always find there is dilemma of what to follow. Those who are working in knowledge industry or the IT specifically, about hiring and about firing. So where is that value system and how do we really look after it is very critical. So let me share my presentation with you, and let me start a dialogue based on the presentation. Okay, I have about 20 slides. I'll start. Everyone is able to see my slides? Yes. All right. So about me, I won't speak because you'll able to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're interested in connecting. And first of all, thanks Saturday morning, spending a time for this kind of subject. Thanks for being here, and thanks to Ashish and Mindful Living community for me getting opportunity to interact with you. Post the session, which are about 20 odd slides, you can ask questions. Some of the exercises I'm going to ask you to do, we have 7 questions being asked as we go ahead. Okay. So first and foremost, you find that there are many of a leadership styles which are being defined. You find there are 10 odd styles of leadership are being defined, and we generally confuse between values and the leadership. And you would find that autocratic, democratic, and so on and so forth, delegative, visionary, even transitional, transformational. There are various leadership styles which have been defined. According to me, they are how to lead and approaches to the whole thing, and they could be based on situations. Okay. And example, if you want to run some project and you would say, okay, what we need to evoke is a transitional leadership. while you would like to do a complete change management, you may be looking at transformational. However, when it comes to value based, it talks about why to lead. Okay, so difference is typically how versus why. And whatever said and done, values cannot change. They will be not compromised at any cost. Now, that's something which is very important, be it under pressure, be it under inconvenience. And this is where the conflict comes in, as Ashish pointed out, that the conflict comes in because whether I should follow the outcome or the value, and that becomes very critical. Now, what is value based leadership? Okay. First and foremost, we need to be clear about our values. And many a times I was a part of the exercise in the organizations where we were defining the values. And one of the things we look back at what made us successful and are we ready to continue on the same lines? So we talked about consistency. We talked about clarity. And we said then based on that, we bring in this as a values and we have to live with it. And it started happening that we kind of started explaining every leader who's joining in the organization what is the purpose of this organization. Okay, why are we working here? I'm sure this is also in the context of individual or a group. When we attach to a group or individual, you'll find you're defining a purpose why you are here in this particular community, or why do you make certain relationship happen. Then comes in principle which you say I will not trade on, and that's where you say no compromise at all. And then what actually happens is you're showing up, you're practicing it. Being HR, we were so called custodian because it's like a role of mother in the house where anything goes wrong, mother will be responsible for it and being answerable. So I think this is something very critical to have all three P's as to purpose, principles, and the practice which we would constantly and clearly follow. Let me start with the stories. I start, typically, this is the story I was narrating to Ashish, and that's where he said, oh, let's get into something together to talk to more folks. So when I started my career, I was in Mumbai and, I was as a trainee. There was a distance of about 5 or 6 kilometers from the workplace or where we used to visit a client's place to the railway station. And being impatient, I was looking at my senior as if, why don't, spending a time being impatient, we said, is there a faster way to go? Now, here my senior said, Melin, right now we can typically take a cab and move to, where, quickly. But there are two aspects to it. Number one, when I'm not there, you will not able to go by the cab. And two, this was a very important thing. He said that we can travel by bus and still can claim for a cab. But the problem is I will not able to show myself, my face. So typically what I'm saying is what we are trying to look at is the integrity. And this was a very small story, but it taught me about the integrity. That is that something which I can validate for myself, and can I get the internal validation to do the things that would be my value. So this was my first lesson of integrity, which I've learned at the beginning of my career. The second story, when again, as a fresh graduate, you also want to show that you're doing something great. And the first project, I started looking at typically how do I prove my metal, and started working on the things. And, being confident, or the edge of confidence and overconfidence, I made the whole thing ready, but didn't take anybody's help. And when I went to my team lead, he said, what you have done really lacks a big deal of collaboration or the inputs which are required to make this thing really good. And it was really embarrassment for me saying that, what I missed out is taking the help from my teammates. Okay. Now, this exactly, he could have really come back heavily onto me, which he didn't do. But he explained me saying that, if you really want to be accountable, you need to have collaboration. And this really made me to understand accountability is a shared responsibility. It is not one person being accountable and able to make the difference. So, this is very important for the personal growth as well as the overall objective you want to achieve. That have the collaboration, the accountability is a culture which can come only with a shared responsibility. Again, learning happened to me And I'm sure, this experience has made me to what I am today because of the people around me. This was really interesting. And as I went ahead in my experiences, okay, I was working with the German company, and we have had the expats coming in, kind of being with us for a few years. Now they wanted a luxury cars, which were really typically a leather interiors and all. And the vendors said, "Oh my God, I'm unable to supply to them because of my, it violates my cultural personal values." And he came and asked me, "What do I do?" I said, "Give it up. Please go, don't go ahead with it." And he said, "Yeah, it's going to have me to suffer." And these contracts were typically for 2 years, kind of 2 or 3 years, till the time their assignment was in India. So when he left that, another colleague of his who left him earlier picked up that contract because for him, this was not something which was a hurdle. And believe it, post 9 months, this organization, nine or maybe, few more period here and there, this organization was acquired by some other organization. And the expert had to go back. 3 months was the period of dilemma. Nobody was in the control of the things because the integration was happening of, merger and acquisition. And the whole thing went into litigation. The 3 years or 2.5 years contract turned out to be 9 months contract, in which 3 months went into limbo. Post litigation, the person who took up the next charge probably got his money or whatever efforts they have put in. The person who has refused it came back to me and said, "Oh, short term loss definitely makes me to realize that you need to stick to a value, be it in an uncomfortable position. But the value of peace is missing out on something which, according to you, is not as per your value." And this is something which I experienced personally. And today also, I feel these are the experiences which help me to look at the things differently. Why it matters so much in current situation? One, very importantly, anything which we are doing today, one of the important aspect which comes to our mind is doubt. For anything, any validations which I'm doing, anything which I'm looking at in my day, I have a trust deficit. And this is in the organization, this is in the relationship, this is in my buying, my looking at any of the things. Why? Another very important thing is my so-called connections were limited 10 years back. But today, with social media and various other avenues opening up, my connects have become global. If I was meeting some 100 people earlier, I may be meeting maybe more than 500 people in a month itself. So the whole thing gets changed into trust deficit, choice. I really have a choice between, again, and that's where you see when I talk in terms of corporate, you see a lot of people are changing the jobs because they have a choice. Okay. Again, when I look into a community today, you are here in this community because by choice, you felt that something is matching for me here. That is the reason I'm here. Now, one of the very important thing is all of us see the changes in the social settings, behaviors, technologies, models of the business, and so on and so forth. But what really, in the whole of this ambiguity or VUCA world, what stays constant is the values. And I think that's very critical for us to have a recognition of ourselves as a value based person. Look at values in action. When we talk about integrity, how is this integrity, really being demonstrated? And we have seen the, practice as one of the thing earlier, purpose and the practice. So integrity does right when no one is watching. A sales leader refuses to inflate the numbers, though it'll hit his bonus, but still want to be really doing what is right. Okay, a project manager accepts the responsibilities for delay in the schedule and says, "I will rework on it," because owns the outcome instead of blaming others. It could happen that you start saying, "My team members of XYZ has not worked, though we have had the number of calls, we were working in agile methodology, but this has failed." I think taking the responsibility and accountability is very critical. Empathy. A manager offers flexible support. Now, here it comes even in your context. If you look at many a times you have been giving this empathy to others, which are your co-workers, your team members, or even your friends. Okay, courage. It takes very difficult to really empower people, you know, and also believe them. So financial irregularities being reported, though there's a pressure from the top, not necessarily only financial irregularities, but any of such things which you feel would have a repercussion from the senior authority, but still having a courage to take your stand and make it happen. Admitting your mistake publicly. You know, how many times you've seen leaders coming instead of saying, no, it was my wrong call. I couldn't do it. And that's, I believe, value in action. With current situation or changing situation in the business and the overall world, there are many more which are being added up. Especially last three, I would say, are in need of a time. Trust, instead of micromanaging, empowering the people and ensuring that they are able to deliver what is required as an outcome. Now, this is somewhere you are obviously, unless you train somebody, unless you have that, yourness being passed into them, it's not going to happen that they will able to deliver the same as you were doing. Now, here comes in the next one. And this is a dilemma which is big in current situation, internal versus external validation. Am I really posting on the social media, LinkedIn, and various other platforms, and I get hundreds of liking, and I say, oh, I'm doing wonderfully well? Or I really do a value add to the people, okay, quietly, and not really want to have so many, accolades around me. Now, this has become one of the very important value to look at. Another very important is you're not going to be really achieving everything which you're deciding for because of competition, because of various other aspects which will be there around you. So asking a question to yourself saying, should I stop or yet I have scope to do the things? And that's growth mindset, which all of us needed today to grow in our own areas. You see a lot of companies do what is known as reverse mentoring to see that they are able to learn from the youngsters on technology or various other things. And I know for sure, I learn from my kids or, younger generation how to operate certain new systems. And that's something which is very critical to have a growth mindset and a continuous learning. Continuous learning is a must because the platforms are changing. As I always say, there are three W's which are changing. Okay. World of work. So work is changing, workplaces are changing. Okay. And the third, what is changing is a workforce. And that being a reason, continuous learning has become must for every one of us. Resilience. Because of competition, you're definitely going to have a failures. But these failures, how do you get back and face it and also make your team ready for it is going to be a resilience as a value. So these are the values in action which all of us need to keep on back of our mind. Here are three examples. Ashish sir did talk about Tata Group, but specifically 2008 Mumbai Taj attacks. This particular organization has provided, supported employees and victims far beyond their obligations. It showed integrity, trust, and responsibility as a value. So when you talk about whether the corporate follows the value, very much a lot of companies have that as their core and they're able to drive it. And believe it, HBR has a case study on how Tata Group has managed this 2008 crisis. Infosys, transparency and governance. It has started. I know for sure, very early days, Infosys also in their balance sheet used to value the human capital and show the numbers there. So that transparency was inculcated by the founder, like NRN, and it continued as open communication, transparency and accountability. And today, post X number of years, maybe more than 40 years, Infosys is around and we all trust Infosys as a name. Mahindra Group, the philosophy of rise, they are saying that you don't keep, anything as a limitation for the leaders. And they say they have done a very huge investment into rural as well as sustainable development of mobility, electric mobility typically. And you'd find the value of purpose, sustainability, and creating a social impact is driven by them. Now, these are some of the things which anybody and everybody follows. How do I take this in a personal context? There are three important things which one has to ask. And I believe everybody is leader in their own context. Okay. Is it ethical of what I'm doing? Does it align with our values or my own values? and we still be proud post number of years of what we have done in the past. And believe it, if I remember some of the stories which I've learned from my leaders, I feel that was the value which has got transitioned to me from them. How do I make the value based decisions? Now, here comes in which value is at stake, would be my question. Okay. Example, over the weekend, I've been asked to do something quickly, and that's my really a family time. Would I do it being, getting the so-called title of a star performer or person available 24 by 7, or would I give that time to my family and handle the crisis on Monday? That's something which I need to decide. Then would I defend it publicly? Now, a simple thing, in a parking, I scratched a car and nobody has watched it. Would I leave a note, or would I wait for somebody to show that recorded video to anybody else, and then, I really go and face the challenges which are there? These are some of the things which I would say is personal completely. Who is affected? Okay. When there's a gossip around, and do I really pass it on further, or do I wait for confirming or not get into it? And what precedence do I leave? Okay. Now, this is a simple thing. In today's world, everybody wants to do a morning time of a fitness. One of the day, okay, where consistency comes into the picture, you would like to give it up. Would you do a short run and give it up, or just make one more habit of skipping it and then calling it 3 days a week instead of 6 days a week or 5 days a week? Okay. So these are some of the aspects we need to check with ourselves when we are talking about value based decisions. Which value is at stake? My family time, or my being called as a star performer or 24 by 7 person? Would I defend it publicly? I would really able to be not shy of accepting the mistake. Who is affected and how, and what precedents I'm setting by which I'm going to get affected positively or negatively. Here comes in very important topic which Ashish sir has talked about, and typically this topic says about the corporate values and conflicts. And there are four aspects which I picked up here. Okay, and this typically are aspects of safety, quality versus speed. When I'm going in the speed, am I really looking at what is that which I'm missing out on the quality and a safety? And this dilemma always remains in the corporates. So one of the example given here, major launch, you stopped it because, and I've seen this happening, in some of the organizations where I'm working as a consultant. Okay. And then you feel that you're not really achieving what corporates or the competition is doing. However, when you come with the real right things, and you find that outages, recalls are not there for your product. And that's something which you need to look at what's going to be your choice. Coming to transparency versus PR, or about the glitches which are there. Breach glitches, are you really open to admit it? This would have two aspects. One, obviously a reputation and price for your shortcomings which are there. Admitting it will give a trust and a long term impact to your own brand, and customers of yours will definitely trust you. Fairness versus nepotism. You'll find that this is something which happens in corporate always, that the leadership position goes to somebody who's influential, known. Okay, what would you do in this particular case? Okay, be loyal, have your own way of working continued, and you would find that the things will come to you. It's not that it's going to be really being away from you, because you'd find the results could be. And again, I'm saying this is some of the experience. When I talk about this, I realize that yes, we have gone through these dilemmas, and I'm not saying that all of that we would have followed is right. We could have done a mistake, but we have learned. That's something which is very critical to understand, that this is going to really make it or break it kind of situation when it comes to typically following these values. Okay. Cheap supplies and sustainability today counts a lot. And I have been saying this, that Gen Z today is expecting your organization to be purpose driven organization. Okay. They have many choices. And if you're able to prove that you're a sustainable organization who lives with the principle, You will definitely have a lesser margins, but you will able to have a sustainability. You will be trusted for a long term by the so-called your employees in the next generation. How do you measure the impact? Look at whether you are able to create the trust and authenticity around you, be it your friends, be it your community, be it your institution, be it your organization, and you will able to test it whether you're able to give the so-called people looking at you. And many a times as a human resource person, when we do interviews at the leadership level, we ask them a question as to what your people say about you, when you are not around. And this is where the so-called the person's value system is known to others based on what has been talked when they are not personally present. Retention and empathy, people will have that feeling for you, looking at when you are really demonstrating the value of retention and empathy will come as an outcome. Speed and accountability, when you accept the mistake, you will be able to move on faster rather than waiting and trying to justify the things which are wrong. Integrity, purpose, and alignment, that's something which you will able to measure based on where the gaps are and how you're able to admit and work on it and ensure that team as well as you are able to achieve the goals. Typically, how is that practically you will use this? Or you have been doing it, but I'm just putting up in the framework. Define. So you already have it with you. Define what are my values, 3 to 5 values in a plain language. Decide, test, choice between those values before you commit. Am I able to really demonstrate this? And then look at it. How do you reward yourself for, kind of reflect on it as to whether you are able to practice it. Okay. So this is the framework along with 3 P's. I say 3 D's are something which are very critical. Here comes the, turning to you. You can decide top 3 values for yourself, write it down. This will help you to take it forward. And we post this, we are going to have 7 questions asked to you. So you'll need pen and paper to score yourself. Not necessary you have to write a score. You can just write serial number and the score when we come to the 7 questions. But as a, kind of exercise, you can write top 3 values for yourself. I'm sure you already have it with you, but this is more of, bringing it out consciously, since we don't go on to it, but we practice it without knowing them. Yeah. Next to each one, recent decisions where your values showed up. Again, this is exercise for you to do it yourself. Here the 7 questions come in. First and foremost, reflect honestly because these are for you. This is a value of audits and the gap between your intention and action. So you would have an intention, you have an action, and your rating scale of scoring is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My, as usual, always advise don't be on the fence of not sure. Either be on 1 or 2 or be on 3, 4, and 5 because 3 is kind of neutral call. Okay, so start with the first one. Do my everyday choice and task match my personal core values? You can give a number 1 to 4, 5, any of it which you want to do. Second, do I speak up when I see something against my or my team's ethics? Team, group, any other context you can look at. How do I handle feedback when my mistakes are pointed out? Very simple, be it in the family, be it in the friends, be it in the corporate setup. Do I celebrate and support my co-workers' success? Again, any of the context you can look at. I'll wait a while, and once you give me go ahead, we'll go to the next slide. Don't think too much, just score it. Shall I go ahead to the next screen? Yep. Again, the same ratings. Do I treat colleagues with the respect even during stressful events? Sixth, do I take full ownership of my responsibilities? And seventh, am I open to learning from colleagues with the different backgrounds? Once you score all seven, you need to total them up. Maximum total would be 35. Once you're done with your total, give me a thumbs up and I can go to the next slide. Okay, we are done. Shall I go to the next slide? Yes, thank you. One. Yes, that's your scoring guide. Highly aligned, developing, and misaligned. Completely your scores and up to you. And this is where I say values tell us what is right. Okay. Values based leaders demonstrate those values consistently through decisions, behaviors, and action. I rather would say you would find that many of our tough decisions in your organizations, many of so-called not so tough decisions, you would able to see the reflection of the value there. Okay, let me go now. What can be done if this is the result? First and foremost, what is that we were asking through these questions? The first one was checking up on a value of authenticity. Daily habits doesn't match with authenticity. The second question was talking about moral courage and accountability. Though the questions were small, it could have been expanded into much bigger, but these are the value we are trying to check through it. The third value, humility and coachability, was something we are looking at. Fourth one was collaboration and freedom from being envy of certain things. Fifth question was talking about empathy and relational integrity. Sixth one was talking about reliability and trust. And the seventh one is talking about inclusiveness and curiosity. And all these are required today. You see, every organization, every institution is talking about, inclusivity, equity. Okay. And that's something which is very critical. What can be done? Write your three, typically I'm saying lower score. Okay. Share with your team and invite the challenges and name the gap where you feel the scores are less. You will be able to practice yourself and know where you're reaching. And let me tell you, we have realized in a tough times. So as I say, being there in the industry for more than 30 plus years, we have gone through many of the challenges faced overall by us as organizations and an individual. So right from Y2K, where the beginning of my career happened, you know, year 2000. Then comes in, even prior to that, it started. But I'm saying being in information technology, knowledge industry, that was a time. Then 2008, when Lehman Brothers happened and everything collapsed. Then comes in 2012 and 13, when there was a slowdown. Then there was typically, I would say, COVID. So we've gone through all this and we've seen leaders interacting or working on this particular thing and responding to it. And let me give you a quick one. When I was working with Cognizant during the slowdown, it so happened that our CEO actually traveled to all the locations in India and overseas, wherever the offices were. And he said, look, we all understand there's a slowdown. Okay. However, we have met 75% of our clients, and they say for next 2 to 3 years, they'll be with us. So we are saved. Now, this was a very tough call, but when this was informed to all of us, we were really aligned to. I'm saying this is a bad news, but the way it was conveyed to us, we feel that it helped us typically to be there with the organization and stay with them for a long. And obviously, it was phenomenal. We have seen the companies growing, multi-leap. And I'm sure, some of the organization I worked with, we have seen 5x growth in terms of headcount as well as revenue. And what worked and what made them to go further was a value system, which was really practiced there. So being fortunate to be with this kind of organization, which helped me to also see that does value pay you in an uncomfortable situation? It does. And that's the resolve which really I've got. So in summary, values are tiebreakers. Okay. They decide the hard calls. It really, when you have to have an easy answer or you have to defend your answer, you will go on different topics. You will do a divergence of it, whether you would like to be in a divergence or be a right answer. Sometimes it would call, example I would give you, while I was working with one of the IT companies, we had to really work on, today it's very easy to say hiring and firing, but we were laying off the folks. How could we really say we're laying you off? And we did that exercise, but we ensured that we have got spent the money and got the outplacement firm to see at least 40-50% of them we are able to help to get another opportunity. So this is something which can be done without diverging, saying that very clearly we are unable to really support you at this point of time, but we have something else tried for you. Integrity is tested when it is really inconvenient, and I have talked about some of the example which we have faced. Define, decide, demonstrate is the framework which you can follow for your values. Ask four questions to yourself: which value is at stake? Who is affected? Would I defend this publicly? And what precedence does it set? Am I able to say that what I have done 5 years back is right? Culture is what leaders tolerate. Hiring, onboarding, reward, corrections are where the values either become real or quietly they expire. And you find that, especially in the leadership hiring, this is one of the things which has been very clearly understood. Know your gap and close them. We have seen 7 questions. Broadly, it is more of a cursory thing. I'm not saying this is a deep dive, but that will give you an idea as to what you can action or work on to. This is more of not anything new to be added up, but it's more of reflecting back. You have been living with it, you have been performing, you have been acting on this, but this was a bit of a reminder about the value based leading or living our life. Yeah, that's it from my side. We can open for the questions, your experiences, your comments, anything as a sharing you would like to do, because I'm sure with this, I must have evoked a lot of thoughts in your mind about your own, journey and experiences. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Milind sir, for such a fascinating session and sharing so many examples from your personal life, which make this truly relatable. And thank you very much once again. We'll be happy to take questions or comments from you. You can use the raise hand button in the reactions below in that tab, and we'll be happy to hear from you one by one. Um, so that's how we will, or you can just raise your real hand like this, and we'll try and pick you up. So while we are waiting to hear from you all, what amazing, and the couple of things that stood out for me, Milind sir. One thing was which is very close to my heart is planet, people, and profit that you mentioned about, and how often we get that wrong. And we have seen so many examples like the oil spills, and which have damaged the ecology and the environment, and or the 2008 meltdown where a few investment bankers really went out of the way to make their personal bonuses millions of dollars, but they shook up the entire system. So much of chaos happened because of that. So when we put profits ahead, if we reverse the order, there is so much chaos that happens.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing that. You spoke about nepotism, and I was immediately thinking about Ramayana. So this nepotism is talked a lot about these days, but in a way it started, it says from the Ramayana times or from the Mahabharata also, where we favor our children to get the kingdom, and like this, so
I, I
yeah,
I probably feel our society is built on the value system which is coming from all our mythological stories.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, which tells you what is the value system you need to follow and what's going to be the outcome from it.
correct, correct. Thank you, Nita. Glad you liked it. And yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Mayuri. That's beautiful that the values are, these mythological stories have the one of the reasons they have this appeal through the centuries is because of the values, which have been
Absolutely.
built in as a part of the story. Respect for elders,
Yeah, many things.
courage.
Sacrifices, Ramayana
Yeah,
talks about going by the principle
yeah,
and
yeah,
so on and so forth. It's while people feel it's very difficult to follow, I think probably, my journey, which was definitely tough, I followed a lot of things out of this. And I would say I couldn't stick with the organization more than 5 years in any of the organization. So during my tenure of 35 years, I would have, changed the organization with either, there was a stagnation or some other aspects, or I felt probably things are not going right at this point of time for me. Any question, any stories, any experiences anybody would like
yeah,
to
yeah.
share?
We'll be happy to hear from you, your own
Yes, yes.
stories, yeah, uh, any conflicts. One of the values I personally,
Sandeep sir wants to go for it. Yeah.
yes, 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 please.
Somebody was noticing me coming back. But yeah, it's quite insightful. Thank you, Milind, for sharing the insights, and I really liked it. Being in the industry for I think almost over 3 decades now, and uh, quite an experience. I really value the things what we value when we are at work. Like I personally follow some of the principles, uh, typically trust and the respect and the empathy. These are like my core principles when I deal with the people, whether they are my juniors or seniors or my team members or outsiders. That has actually helped me a lot in many different ways. Sticking to the company, like my current company, I've been there with for more than 20 years now. So a long journey in the same company. But as Milind was saying that you should not be getting a place where you get stagnated, right?
Yeah.
So fortunately, my company's portfolio is pretty good, and I've been able to move from one role to another role
I think that's
uh,
very critical.
every
Yeah.
3 to 4 years or 5 years. So that actually helps me learn quite a new things. Sometimes starting over right from the scratch and
Yes.
learn few things. It helps growing the views and the way we look at the things there. So
Great.
collaboration and talking to the people, it's always helpful, whether it's Gen Z or the millennials
Yes.
or,
Yes.
or Alpha, Beta, whatsoever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
So, so it's really helpful. So
Great.
thank you.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Sandeep. Yeah, and these values play out in different ways across generations. What do Gen Z value? What do millennials value? It varies by the generation. And understanding that, and one thing which I realize is no value is right or wrong.
true.
Sometimes we judge people by the values they have. But even in our scriptures, it is written that everybody has a right to live by their values, even if they're immoral, whatever.
No,
Yes.
Ashish sir, when we learn human resource function, we have been told your personalities are built based on what social aspects you face through, be it your teachers, be it your community, be it your parents. So, all that develops your value system or personality as overall personality. And certain things you decide for yourself, right or wrong. Okay. And your right or wrong may be adaptability of it. Like example, somebody joining in any organization where the value which has been written is stretch yourself beyond for your customers satisfaction, and he says I don't want to do that
Yeah. Yeah.
because I've been not coming with that particular thought. I believe in doing my own work, and rest of the people I don't care. I'm not saying in so negative way, but I'm saying I'm master of my things, so I end of it.
Yeah.
Now, under the circumstances, for both of the organization as well as the individual, that's not right alignment. Nobody is wrong, but the alignments are wrong. Okay? Because you're sitting in the train which is not going to a destination which you would like to lead to.
Yeah.
You go by probably into instead of services, go into innovation organization where you be on your own. Okay? Outcome, you don't care.
Thank you. Thank you, Milind sir. Sudeshna. Yes, Sudeshna.
So I would cite two or three different examples where it has gone down. I mean, I went down with it, and places where it has actually acted like a net. I have also realized that this happens when you are at a particular position in that organization. Where are you in in an influential place or not so influential? So I have changed jobs 9 times. This is my tenth one, and as and when I'm aging, job wise and also physically, the retention period is increasing. So initially, I recall an incident. I stay in Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad faced the Godhra riots. I was working with the community which was the minority Muslims. The uh, the community workers, they were from Muslim community. They took a lot of time to come to the clinic where we were running a health program.
Yeah.
So, and she also felt, threatened to walk. It was hardly 3 to 4 kilometers, but for her, it was an usual thing to walk down to the clinic every day. But during the riots, she preferred to take an auto. Now, at the end, I would be paying the auto fare and maintaining and this is my second job. So, 25 years ago. So at the end of the month, when I submitted the bill to my boss that these are the things, so suddenly it was an inflated cost. And he questioned me that why auto fares, they are not entitled. No, but the situation was such, they had to. And for me, safety of that person is far more than. So he said, pay it from your salary. So I paid and I resigned. So that was one. Next was, with this, I went down, and it was a kind of a job which I really liked.
Yeah.
Next was, I am working with another organization. This is a children's organization, and this is um, just 10 years ago. A donor comes with a lot of money and from the US, and the donor is also the son of a person who is a patron for our organization. So the organization hasn't seen that much of money so far, and the boss says that engage with the donor. The donor has this proposal of paving the playground, the muddy playground with a synthetic thing called EPDM. So
Okay.
I send out an email to my boss that this is not environmentally sustainable, so we will not do it. And
Yeah.
I get an immediate, a stiff email. that do whatever it takes to take the money from the donor. So the money is taken. I couldn't say no to it. Now the work is being done. The work got over. But the kind of amount that was with us and the amount we needed to complete the work, there was a gap of around 3 to 4 lakhs. That much was remaining, even after the work was finished. I prepared a proposal that this is what we are planning to use this money for in this work. And this I sent directly to the donor. I didn't even send it to my boss. Again, my boss calls me and says that this is not done because they don't like you are overstepping the boundaries and you should do
Yeah,
whatever they have said. But the donor responds with such generosity and says, "We are so happy to see this integrity."
yeah,
And she approves that all these things can be done. So that was two. The same in the same organization during COVID, a lot many faceless donors, we haven't seen them so far, came in with sacks full of money. Take this. And since it was COVID and things were really down, there was a strong tendency among some of us to, push me that lelo. But I just, because at that time I was in a position where I could influence decisions. So I just asked the security person that close the doors, lock them, ask me before letting anyone inside, and such things will not be allowed at all. I don't know whether it, helped in the future or not, but at least me and my organization and the managing trustee, they all slept well in the nights because there was
yes,
not a single unaccounted penny with us. Especially FCRAs and all are so, falling down,
absolutely,
closing down upon our NGOs so badly. So that was one action which I'm really proud about, that I could, stop that greed. And I really feel, because you say that it is a part of your upbringing, so I think maybe that's how I was, brought up. Because even I tell to my children what was told to me, that जो तुम्हारा नहीं है वो लेना ही नहीं है. And
absolutely, absolutely,
yeah, and the other thing which it holds strongly with me is that if you can say no to 1 rupee, you can say no to hundred thousands lakhs.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So, a very important points which you have, kind of put through. I have been reading one Dr. Devadatta Patnaik, and he talks about mythology connection with the management. He talked about three things. One, he said, whatever is your belief is going to be your behavior, and that's going to be your business. So this reflection of three B's is something which he clearly said. And he always said when the organization is small, it behaves more in the way of Ramayana, where principles are followed, sacrifices are done. Like example, King Bharat didn't, really become king, and he waited for Rama to come back for 14 years, or Lakshmana went with him, and it's all this. Whenever the organization becomes big and corporate, huge giant, the whole thing gets into eligibility. It becomes more autocratic. Okay, and his narrating from Mahabharata says when Draupadi Vastraharan was happening, every of the senior guy was sitting there, but they were eligible, not eligible, and beyond their command to give that particular order. Right? So probably we need to look at what setup we are into and what reflections are happening there. And I'm sure what you faced was autocratic leadership, where people said, "This is my position, this is my call, you can't take my call." But that's where it comes in. How do you win the trust? How do you empower the people and get the work which is right for the organization? Yeah.
Sir, can you please repeat the three B's?
Number one, beliefs.
Oh,
Number two, behavior. And number three, business. So
okay.
my business is based on my beliefs and my behavior. And that's what is the outcome people have.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Uh, we are almost approaching 12. Any one last question or comment, and then we
Yeah,
will.
Ashish, I wanted to ask you,
Yes,
or
yes.
maybe the uh, uh, Mr. Milind,
Yes.
Yes.
as to how do you mentioned about Ramayana and Mahabharata a few times. So, what all can be adopted from these two mythology in our present scenario, whether it is your home or whether it is your work? So just in maybe uh, 2 3 points, if we can just adopt them,
Absolutely.
by our heart, by our soul, by our mind, it should be inculcated in us as a leader, so that we can further inculcate in our right from top to the bottom.
Okay. Ashish, you want to go for it? You
Sure,
want me
sure,
to?
sure. Sure,
Okay.
I'm happy to share my thoughts, and
Yeah.
Milind sir, you can add to that.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Naveen this is very personal, and what stands out for me is courage, in terms of Ram just stepping out, leaving everything, dropping everything at the drop of a hat, and then moving into the jungles. It's not easy to live in jungles, right? Where there are so many demons, and then so many things happen, and then finally the fight. So the courage to accept things as they are and to go with the flow rather than complain, right? Even when Kekai came requesting him to come back to the palace after Dashrath had passed away, he stayed too true. He said, "No, whatever my father had said, I'll do that." So, following the guidance of elders, being courageous, being compassionate, so never ever has he talked ill about Ravan, even though whatever he did, he never talked ill about him. So compassion, courage, following the principles is two three things that stand out for me, Naveen ji.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just add few. Typically, I'm saying, owning the promise. Dasharatha is being, promised, saying that to the Vaikaikeyi, saying that, I'll make your son king, and so on and so forth. Now, very easily, and I've heard this somewhere from some of the folks, Ram being one of the kings, he could have refused father's promise. And he could have said, "No, I want to own the kingdom. I don't care, Adam, for your promise." But he really, being uncomfortable, still took up the promise which is given by his father. Okay? Went for 14 years to sacrifice. The second thing, which I think probably is something which is highlighted again from the Ramayana, is Rama could have really gathered together rest of the kings and rest of the all warriors and could have defeated Ravana. He didn't do that. On the way, he went on picking up the people who were normal folks. So what it is shows typically is how is that, you know, team can be built up of the folks who you feel probably are not the warriors, but they will able to work for a cause. Okay. I think my picking up is this too, and then the sacrifices by rest of the folks, like Sita, she could have said, I can stay back, you come after 14 years or whatever is that time, or for that matter, Lakshman. And then the controls. Typically it says, whenever there is a control line put in, when you cross, there are going to be a problems. Okay. There's some of the things. Again, coming to Mahabharata, again, rules are
Well,
being given
I
there.
will stop you for a moment.
Sure, sure.
What about at the end of the whole thing, he left Sita,
Social
which was not
Agni
proper.
Pariksha. Agni
Which was
Pariksha
no,
you're
no,
talking
whatever.
about.
Why did he have to go through Agni Pariksha when he knows clearly that Sita is absolutely she is a
Absolutely. You're
pure
right.
soul.
Now, here there are definitely a debates, but one of the thing, he is more of a society man. Okay.
No,
And
no. Today's
he,
society tells me leave your wife because we have
no,
seen
that's
her. I mean,
exactly. You are going to make the Agni Pariksha happen. Okay. And maybe, in those days, as a king, as a model, you need to prove yourself. Probably the circumstances. Is it that all of Ramayana and Mahabharata apply today? Completely no. The context is different. But how do we pick up some of the threads from there on sacrifices, on control? And coming to, okay, now broadly, I'm sure, uh, every mythological story has its own so called, sides of it. And that being a reason, this is always one of the topic. And I have been using, incidentally, Navinji, I'm just drifting from the context. Whenever I've been talking about human resource function, I said every 5 or 7 years we are going through Agni Pariksha like Sita, because our role changes as a HR. And I've been using that I have to pure myself to be in the new role. Today, if you look at AI and other things coming in, HR's role changes again, and we have to purify ourselves and get to the new role. I completely take your point as a point which is debatable, but do I have a kind of conclusion on it? No. Only point which I would say is being a model you need to do, and the throughout Ramayana story is sacrifices and giving up story. That I don't want to hold something as my ego and want to go by what model code would say.
You
Yeah.
were referring something about Mahabharata as well.
Yeah.
Just go
In
on.
Mahabharata, I would rather say each one's roles. Yes, Sandeep sir.
I'm sorry.
Ashish sir, your time is going to stretch further because people are really getting into interesting conversations. Yeah.
No,
We'll be happy.
just hearing out Naveen's questions and all. See, the thing is, Ramayana and Mahabharata. If we talk about Ramayana, we had Ram, we had Rama, Bharat, Lakshman, and Sita. Along with that, we had Kaikeyi and Manthara also.
Absolutely.
Right now, what we want to pick it up from, whose character, whose values do we want to pick from? That is our choices. If you
Absolutely.
talk about Mahabharata, we had Shakuni, we had Krishna, we had Yudhishthir, so many characters. Now it is our choice what character or what values you want to pick it from, right? It entirely depends on our choices. We can always go into the debate who did what and why did they do this, even being the role model or not so the role models and all, right? There are so many questions which
Absolutely.
can be
Absolutely.
debated, can be answered, cannot be answered. It all depends what we want to focus on,
Yes.
Well said, Sandeep.
right? So,
Well said.
Well said.
So,
And
thank
in
you.
my terms, Mahabharata typically talks about certain things which are really applicable today. One is, you're talking about dharma as a, constant thing for which you're fighting. The cause of war or other things is, though, a lot of people criticize it, it was a war for the purpose of land. But I'm saying, it was dharma which has been kind of being said about. Another thing which I'm saying is, see, if you look at anybody who went for a war was skilled themselves. Right from their young age, they were skilled to fight the wars, right? Maybe I think this is something which I'll look at in a corporate way. Third, Pandavas were always shown as lesser numbers as compared to Kauravas, but still they are the winners. So, what is the strategy they have used typically to see that more numbers versus smaller numbers? And last one, very, very, very critical to me is mentorship of Krishna to Arjuna.
Correct.
He didn't pick up any of the weapon in his hand, but he made the war to be won, or Arjuna was guided by him throughout during dilemmas. I think mentorship is something which I'm picking up from a role of Krishna there. Yeah.
very
And
fascinating discussion.
yeah,
And I think what is
and
coming up for me is, Milind sir, maybe we should have one session on value-based leadership with Mahabharata and Ramayana in the
uh,
context of,
I think we have
no,
another colleagues,
yeah,
Santosh and
yeah,
others. They should
maybe
be
all of us
invited.
can,
yeah.
yeah, maybe,
Ashish,
Actually,
yeah,
yeah, actually, it's not Mahabharata Ramana. It's the Gita that has to be referred. In case
Correct.
if you want to know how to live,
Yes.
that is actually a
Yes.
Bible
Absolutely.
of for all the living concepts and other things.
I
sure.
think, Ashish, you should have a session on Gita, which
Yes.
will really tell us exactly,
Definitely,
personal and professional life.
definitely,
Yes.
Naveen.
Ashish,
So
I would
all
like
of
to
our
add.
say,
Devashri
yeah,
wants to.
Devashree, 1 minute.
Hi, hi.
Hi, hi,
Hello. Hi, Ashish.
hi,
Good afternoon, everyone, and hello, uh,
hello.
Mr. Mutalik.
I
Thank you for your hi. Thank you for your valuable thoughts, and it was an amazing session. So I would like to add here, since we are talking about the subject, I'm already part of a group wherein we are learning, we are taking verses from the Gita and how it can be applied to our professional life, business life, whatever, business, employment, our professional life, how that particular verse from Gita can be applied into day-to-day living in our professional life.
Wonderful.
That is what we are studying, and we are part of a group. Currently, we've just taken a break, but we have our weekly sessions wherein we are picking up a verse, we are studying it, and then we are enacting it. So three, four of us, we do a role play, and we actually enact it in the session so that it becomes easier for everybody to understand how it applies. So it's, I mean, I have a person who I know who is an expert in this, and she is a part of she has actually created this group, and she's guiding us, and we are all following her. And it is, yeah, so Gita is Gita is, I mean,
So,
actually Gita is so versatile. I mean,
yes, yes,
we can apply it even to a professional, personal, and just,
absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
and if we just go by the guidelines of the Gita, I mean, that is our Bible. I
See,
mean, I don't
what has
think.
happened is typically we as Indians, we have started picking this up very late, whereas a lot of foreign authors have written about this in their management books from US.
Exactly. So,
True, actually.
there is a famous saying, right? Ghar ki murgi dal
Dal
barabar.
barabar, that's what it is.
Ashish, next session
But
on Gita now.
true.
Yes, yes,
Definitely,
Ashish sir.
definitely, Naveen ji.
And
Ashish, you can.
I'm very happy that we came up with this topic on value-based learning. I'm very, very happy that we haven't talked about two, three topics which are current, flavor of the season: artificial intelligence, Gen Z, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
We didn't just speak about it.
No,
I
that's a
mean,
topic which is never-ending discussion. So I think
That's
yeah.
what I
let's
said,
just
Naveen ji, that we didn't have. We were so much into our topic that we didn't pick that up at all. Yeah.
But this is I mean, Gita, I mean, we don't have to look anywhere else. Our Gita is
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Foreigners can do this,
Yeah.
then why are we
Why?
ignoring our, I
Yes.
mean,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
something basic? But unfortunately, it's not recognized as much. But
It'll
I
happen.
am
It'll happen.
advocating.
I always say
Ashish,
yet, then we will
Ashish
definitely
and
do it. Yeah.
yeah, of course, Mr. Milind, you can sort of, because right now what you spoke was very beautiful, that you actually want to be in the place of Bhagwan Shri Krishna. I don't think there was a better mentor than
Always a
the
pleasure
divine has.
wherever I can contribute. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Devashree.
Thank
he
you.
is
Thank
the
you.
creator. Yeah, he is the creator of this universe. I mean, you, me, we are all existing. I mean, because of him. So yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
we don't
Yes.
need to look anywhere else, but
Yeah.
but to him, towards him.
What a
Thanks, Ashish, for giving me a chance.
thank you,
Thank you,
Devashree.
Mr. Matalik, once again.
Thank you.
What a
Thanks.
fascinating discussion. And it looks like, we could go on and on, but I understand this is a Saturday and you would have things to do.
Yeah.
But Naveenji, to your point, we will definitely pick up on value-based leadership with Bhagavad Gita as the context. So by the way, for all those who are on this call and those who are watching the video, we December, all the month of December, all of our sessions are dedicated to Bhagavad Gita. So possibly we will take it up in December,
Wow.
if not earlier. Navinji, to your point, I think, and thank you for bringing up this interesting context. And thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you,
Stop
Milinji.
buying
Thank
expensive
you.
vegan cheese.
Thank you everybody for this joining us for this session. Thank you, Milinji, for this wonderful
Thanks.
taking
Thanks,
us through.
everybody.
Yeah,
Thanks,
have a
everyone.
wonderful
Thank you.
Thank
weekend.
you,
Thank
Thank
you
you,
everyone.
for tuning.
everyone.
Thank you.
Happy
Thanks.
weekend. Have a
Happy
nice
weekend.
Happy
weekend.
weekend.
All of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.